So these are a few things that you can do through the UI itself, but mostly as a developer you would like to use Visual Studio to do some, put in some content in there. So let's look at some of those techniques. Now you have a simple empty SharePoint project in here. um, See, if you see the project properties, I have pointed this particular project to be the site URL to be for this screencast. So basically this makes sure that whatever you deploy, the app pool of that particular site collection or site URL gets recycled so that the latest changes can reflect in there. So let's start off with creating a simple hello world webpart, visual webpart. So when you create a visual webpart, all that it does is it creates a webpart, and within the webpart it loads an ASCX. So if you look at the ASCX itself, it's blank. I'm going to put in some content in there. If you're a ASP.NET developer, it's pretty much easy. You know what you're doing in here. You're just putting a label in here. Now, one thing to be checked, a few things to be checked in here. First of all, first thing you have to make sure that this web part, this user control goes to a proper location. Now, by default, if you look at the properties, you have a deployment location, and there's two parts to the deployment location. One is the root and one's the path. The root is SharePoint root. That's a 14 hive / template. It has to be placed in there. This you cannot modify, so it's grayed out in here. Further to template, you want to put it in some folder. Control template is a good place because all ASCX files, user control files, will go in there. What it's done is by looking at the solution structure in here, a project structure, it has put in a hello world folder, and as well as an extra folder for this specific web part. So I don't want this thing, so if you want you can delete this. So now it will place in SharePoint root template control templates hello world SC. So this looks good. What it does in the background is it goes it changes the visual webpart in here, and if you see this has been modified to reflect the new path. So all's good on that part, so you don't have to worry on that. Let's look at the features itself. Right click and view designer. The feature is there, but it's not including the current web part, so you have to actually manually select that thing and include it in these features. So there we are good. Third thing is need to check if everything's good with the package itself. So right click on package and view designer. You see that the feature is included, and within the feature the project the hello visual web part is included. That's good. Let's look at the manifest itself. The manifest puts in a safe control entry. That's nice. You have the 4-part assembly name and the namespace, and it's already marked as safe control. It's going to put in your ASX control to this location in the template files. So the template files indicates 14 hive / templates, and from there on it's going to find the control template folder, hello world AC folder. If it's not there, it will create one, put the ACX in there, and finally it's reference to the feature.xml manifest which we saw in here. So all looks good. So I'm going to rebuild, deploy. Succeeded. um, let's go home. Let's create a webpart page. Put it inside pages. Then I'm going to use the default header, footer, 3 columns page in here. Okay, so let's add the web part in this central column in here. Probably I'll find it in custom since we have not modified that. Here it is, web part, and we see our web part in here. Let's stop editing in here. So we just have to live with this content from the master page because it's not going to show up in every page. So let's forget about that. The visual web part here is properly rendered. Now this is a visual web part. It's nothing but a hack. Basically a web part loading a user control. In 2007 and prior there was only web part available for SharePoint, and as a roundabout there was something called a smart part which we can use to put in a user control. So let's look at the default web part that's actually used. So create one, select web part. So first thing to note in here is the web part is inherited from system.web.ui web controls of web parts of web part. So there's another base class you can use, Microsoft.SharePoint.web controls or web parts of web part, but that is mostly used for backward compatibility. So we'll stick on with the ASP.NET web part. You have a stub in here for create site controls. We'll use a label. So basically we created a new control on the fly, but we need to add that control to the main control, to the container. Now you may be wondering how the safe controls are being added. So basically whenever you create a web part, there's a collection called safe control collection, and it makes an entry for you by default based on the current namespace. Here's the assembly name and here's a namespace for visual web part. Now let's look at the normal web part. That too would have created a new entry in here. If you don't want to actually create separate ones for each web part that you add, usually we all stick to the same namespace. Then you have to go modify the namespace that is generated by default when you create a new web part and stick on to one common namespace, maybe hello world SC. So in this case we'll just leave it as is in here. Next thing is make sure that the feature is including this web. Usually it does not, so select the web part, include it in the feature. What this does is it makes the relevant package information available in the packages. So let's look at packages just make sure. So it has included the feature and the two products in here, two components. It's entered my both safe control entry. As you can see, both are different namespaces. You can specify star in here, so any namespace in this particular assembly will be considered safe. For that you can go and do some edit directly in here. So you need to know what you're doing in here. You can make sure that this solution, if you make an entry in here, this it will show up in here and remove this content over there. So for now, let's keep it simple. Let's stick on with whatever is generated from Visual Studio. So everything looks good. Rebuild. Deploy succeeded. I'm going to my page in here. I'm going to add it in the first left column in here. Again, it's custom. Say it's a new one. Hello world web part, not a visual web part. And there it is. Stop editing. So I do have a visual web part in here and a normal web part in here, both rendering contents.